Now let's take you through the newspapers this morning. The major stories making headlines across Nigeria this Monday morning. We're joined by political analyst Dotun Ojon. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you too.
It's good to be here.
All right. Yeah. Now, on the Punch newspapers this morning, where we start off, it says there, reps may clash over Tinubu's $2.2 billion fresh loan on Tuesday. Loan is an extra burden on government. Nigerians, a minority caucus warns. We will approve loan and ensure it is not diverted, says deputy spokesman. Okay. Also this morning, upgrade. Discos may move 3 million subscribers to estimated billion.
Huh?
Presidency tackles Kuka for tagging Tinubu accidental leader. Interest rates hike likely again as MPC meets today. And of course, you know, Jose Adeogun has once again gotten its facelift as it does every Utide season.
Maybe Cardi B will come this year.
Absolutely. Zenith Bank ushers in Utide with Lagos Street light up. I wish, you know, every bank in Lagos would take one street, you know, and just light up the whole city. You know, somewhere in Lekki needs a bank to please my street.
You mean, is it your street?
Yes, I wouldn't mind.
Are you sure it's your street, or you're looking at like that a street that's where there's a particular store that has a farm name?
PDP governor's 24th state chairman plotting to keep Damagum, says reps. Police hunt Ogun woman for dumping child outside clinic. And also, Kayamo says Oyedepo's jet can't leave private airstrip without clearance. I'm not sure why that is coming up.
All right.
Tinubu may present budget this week, says the Senate. These are the big stories on the Punch.
Daily Independent says, at the top of the paper, Okpebholo raises 14-man panel to probe Obaseki on the front page of the Daily Independent. Dangote refinery cuts ex-depot price of PMS to 970 naira per litre for marketers. Experts warn of businesses in Nigeria collecting payments in dollars. It's like we start with the fashion brands. Task federal government to prevent dollar-dominating country's economy, worried foreign airlines violating BASA arrangements, and ask federal government to enforce CBN Act that criminalizes refusal of naira. SERB asks Tinubu to probe missing 57 billion naira in humanitarian affairs ministry. Tinubu, Buhari, others accidental leaders, says Bishop Kuka. Nigeria-Brazil pact to boost agric in 774 local government areas, attract $4.3 billion. We are committed to paying heritage banks uninsured deposits, says NDIC. Lagos government hails Supreme Court ruling on lottery regulation. And telcos rule loss of 70 million subscribers in 9 months. Face bleak future in dilemma over NCC refusal to approve tariff hike. And that's all on the Daily Independent. Let's move to our final paper this morning.
The Daily Times coming up next. It says here, Wale Adun, Nigerian government saves $20 billion by ending fuel subsidies. Still, same government, of course, you know, is looking out for a $2.2 billion loan. So, I mean, it's raising questions. If we've saved $20 billion, maybe it means that we have not spent $20 billion. Doesn't mean that we have $20 billion. And that's why the government still needs to go take a loan. Maybe, you know, he should, you know, explain further what he means by we saved $20 billion while still, you know, going out for loans. I won't yield to pressure from APC governors to dump PDP, says Adeleke. Bishop Kuka, how Tinubu, Buhari, Jonathan Obasanjo became presidents by accident. And also Clark to Tinubu, try Buhari and Malami for humiliating ex-CJN Walter Onoge. I'm going to start with the Punch newspapers this morning. I think I would probably just give, you know, Dotun Ojon freedom to pick any story that he wants to start with, you know, whichever one tickles your fancy this morning to start with.
Okay, because I drive in Lagos traffic and I'm used to a lot of fights, see yellow buses and all of that. Maybe we should talk about the reps clashing with the presidency about...
so you imagine that it's going to be like Gidigbo.
Now, would you allow me to break this down so that everybody will understand? Number one is that when you make a budget, for example, at the beginning of the year, and there's a deficit in it, it's a way of communicating to the people that you will get that deficit by borrowing. So the borrowing that is happening in government is not new to any organ of government, either the executive, the legislature, or even the judiciary, because the budget we talk about is the destiny direction of any nation. So by January, for example, I tell you that this is how my nation will be by December. And I am having a budget of, let's say, 1 billion. And all I can get from my internal or sources is about 500 million. Once you give approval to that budget, knowing full well that I can only get about 500 million from the 1 billion, you have given an indirect approval for borrowing. So it is not a matter of what we want to fight over. It is the reality that people like us who have read the budget have known from the beginning of the year that when you have a budget of so amount of money and you do not have money to fund it, how do you want to fund it? You go borrow. So it shouldn't be new to the House of Reps member. But here is it. In leadership, there are two ways to economic freedom. You either take the staircase or you take the lift. Here is the problem. When you take a lift in a place where power is epileptic, you can actually get stuck. So we can decide at the beginning of the year that, oh, do we want to take a lift or want to take the staircase? Whichever way, the focus is at the end of the day, this is what we want to achieve. When you agree that you want to take the staircase, you sit down and you arrange your budget in a way that you will not need either internal or external borrowing as much as that. That means that you want to take one step at a time. But when you agree that you are going to take the lift, then you create a portion for borrowing, which is what we have now. Now here is the fear. The fear now in Nigeria is that when you have a budget, usually the budget performance is usually between 50 and 70%. And that's why REP is warning now that, okay, even at the end of the day, so do not expect that there's going to be a fight tomorrow. Approval will happen tomorrow because they are aware. But at the end of the day, this is the worrying part of it. A Nigerian government or the executive arm can actually go get money, borrow it, and decide not to use it to execute the project that that money is meant for. So at the end of the day, you can hear that our budget performance is 70%. So there's not going to be any fight. It's a decision we have made, including you, because anybody that is living in a federal constituency in Nigeria is part of those people making that decision, because you have a representative in Abuja who is supposed to sit at the beginning of the year and say, oh, we are not going to approve this budget. Why? Because the deficit is too wide. But once you give approval to a budget that has a wide deficit, you have given indirect approval for borrowing. So what the president is doing now is acceptable within the context of the budget that he has prepared and presented to them. So nobody is going to come out to say,
they're not really
we
going
want
to
to
clash.
fight. No, there's not going to be any clash.
Let's quickly hear from Michael calling from Lagos. Good morning, Michael. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
So I want to quickly talk about the issue with reverse state allocation. I don't know if my life discussed that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I don't understand what brand of democracy we are now practicing in this country since the advent of APC, because everything that represents democratic tenets has gone to zero level. All the things that the APC, when they were in the opposition, were criticizing the PDP then, they are doing most of it. Anybody that comes on air or anywhere speaking, justifying any actions that APC has taken so far, does not mean well for this country. So because that River State is in the opposition and the former governor Wike had sold the state vote to the present president, so the River State cannot run as a state and allow the governor to pilot the affairs of the state. Why withhold allocation of the state that produces majority, a sizable portion of the resources of this country? Is that how we are going to be continuing in this country? If the judiciary are pocketed by the APC and the presidency, there's just no hope for the common man again. And if all of us are silent, all these things, we see that the Nigeria is becoming a fair state where there's no more law and order. So whatever the president is doing, he should tell Wike to take his hand off the governance of River State. He has ruled the state for 8 years as a governor. Why continue to destabilize the state when he's now a minister of the FCT? If Tinubu, who pretended to be a pro-democrat, does not do anything about this River State, the people of River State may be forced to take the laws into their hands.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. I mean, interesting point is made there, but I want us to, talk further about the budget. On the Punch, it still says here, Tinubu may present budget this week. We don't have, a clear picture of budget implementation for 2024 yet. The Auditor General's office, if you remember in the news, has already stated that certain ministries, MDAs, have a contract fraud, that have been uncovered, 197 billion naira contract fraud in the MDAs. And I've repeatedly argued that one of the things that we completely fail to recognize is that Nigeria loses a lot of money through leakages, in government. MDAs across the country, both on the federal and on the state level, have so many holes through which funds just, leak and are not used for the reasons that they, have been budgeted. But we don't seem to take the Auditor General's report, seriously every year. And it's not the first time that we're seeing this. In previous years, the Auditor General has indicted many, MDAs for, mismanaging billions and billions of naira, but nothing changes. Yeah. What are your expectations for the 2025 budget?
Okay,
there's, I think, about 10 trillion naira budget deficit that has been
So people who do not, especially people in government, when they do not understand the concept of budget, they think it has to be a year in, year out kind of ritual. Yeah. So that's why they call it a lifespan. Budget actually has a lifespan. And anything that has a lifespan can actually be extended. For example, if you sit down and you look at the realism of the budget execution in a particular year, you can decide to say, oh, I'm actually shifting this budget to cover up to June of next year for me to be able to fix all the things that needs to be fixed, to make the monies that needs to be made available, to make it available. But here is what we've done over the years. There's been a constant competition with ourselves. For instance, if we make 2023 budget 7 million, government thinks that the next budget has to be 10 million. No, it does not have to be 10 million. Once you continue to increase your budget like that, now you have created a legal avenue for people to steal money. What does that mean? If people have excess money that is budgeted for, it means that excess fraud will happen, which is what is happening. So my expectation is that the government will look critically into this one we are doing and have a way of extending it into 2025 so that reasonably we can have 80% to 90% performance of this budget before we'll be thinking of drafting a new one. And there's nothing stopping the government, instead of moving forward and creating a huge amount of deficit, we can actually move backwards. Move backwards to complement what we have done before. What do I mean? Instead of having a 10 trillion, we can do a 6 trillion budget. In that sense, people will not have access to steal more money. So I think these are some of the things. And you will remember that when this government came on board, the debt we had was only about 87 trillion naira. Yeah, now as is 136 trillion. That means that within this short period of time, the government has borrowed over 50 trillion naira.
Hold on. Mark, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Go ahead quickly.
Okay. Please, I would just like to make a contribution to the effect that when we are discussing certain issues that are sensitive in the country, some people come on television. The press has a big responsibility to do some investigation that will help check some people that come to do gaslighting on television. Please, I want to put a poster. Can you find out? Anytime the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee meets, the money is not disbursed immediately. As we speak now, how many states have received the money? Does it mean that once facts see, the money is allocated immediately and disbursed immediately? So when you do that investigation, you'll be able to tell the guy who is coming to gaslight that it is not targeted at River State. No state has received the money because it takes a process for money to hit the accounts of the state after fact meeting. Yeah. If you have done that investigation, you will have checked the man that came to pay on the motion of this money. So River State is not targeted. No state has received the money because it takes a process after meeting before money hits the accounts of state. That is my contribution. All
right, thank you very much. He does make, I should mention that he does make a really good point.
Yeah, but
the way that Jake Ekpele painted it, it sounded like every other state has received but River State.
That's why I asked. If you remember, I asked in the conversation that we're saying that every other state has received their allocation and River State hasn't received, because according to the report, he's saying that I think it was on Wednesday that this allocation was and this is a report that was done 2 days ago, meaning Wednesday last week.
Yes, so
when does October allocation get into the account? Because it's 25th
I
of
think
23rd
where
of
the
November.
confusion lies, and I really wanted to talk about it when we're talking about budget, is the fact that there were contradictory statements from the ministry. Initially, the office had actually said, oh, they were going to abide by the earlier court this thing that stopped them from giving allocation. Then they came back because immediately Rivers State government actually appealed that. And I think we need to be very, very careful when we speak as if there's nothing good happening in Nigeria. We do know that people can do better, but it's a tradition across Africa that opposition is enmity. Until we continue to outgrow this same Rivers, you know what former Governor Amechi, you know how PDP dealt with him when he was in APC. I don't know whether you remember all of this story, to the point that you remember CP Umbu and all of that, going here and there. I think our political leaders must continue to create impression that opposition is not enmity. And we must also be very, very careful, because this is the only country we've got. And all of us, we must be strategic and deliberate in speaking well of the country. That does not mean that we should not point people that are in power into areas where they can do better and areas where they are doing wrongly.
Speaking well about the country, maybe later I'll ask you your thoughts on the video statement, but I want to quickly take the story on the Daily Independent. Experts warn of businesses in Nigeria collecting payment in dollars. I don't think that anybody can pretend like they don't know that there are people that charge in dollars. There are businesses, even brands. In the fashion industry, for example, if you go on their website, you'll see dollar payments, although a number of them will put dollar payments and then they'll put the Naira equivalent, and the dollar would be for maybe their audience abroad. But we're seeing here that they've asked the federal government to enforce TBN Act that criminalizes refusal of Naira. How important do you think this is?
Dollarizing your economy has never been the best, and we could point out there are some countries in Africa that when you look at them from, and I don't want to mention them because a lot of Nigerians will like to visit some of these countries. When you mention them from outside of the country, you see, oh, everything is nice. But when you get into the economy and you open the book, you see that these are dollarized economy. It doesn't mean that they are doing better than Nigeria, but there's a difference between performance and perception. What they've been able to get right is the issue of perception. Dollarizing your economy is not always the best thing. And it's so annoying now when they get to a point where you have to pay in dollar. Some hotel can tell you that, oh, it's actually $50 per night, but this is the Naira equivalent. I can confess to you that I've been in a situation where somebody wants to pay for house rent and the person demanded that it has to be in the greenback. So all of these things are happening. And in fairness, it's not the poor Nigerians that are making these things to happen. That's why most of the times when we have conversation, it seems as if we are always pointing upward. Where do I want to get dollars to pay for house rent, for instance? So I think we must not destroy this economy. The NSC is doing extremely well. We must continue to work on these gains and ensure that, number one, we do not dollarize our economy. Number two, we do not look at big industries alone, because we can take examples of countries that have moved from where we are to where they are today, and the input of small and medium scale entrepreneurs. So these are some of the things we must continue to do. But government cannot actually shy away from the fact that they are aware that big players in the industry, in many of the industry, have actually dollarized our economy.
From the reports here, you will see that they are worried about foreign airlines violating the arrangements. And a number of airlines are just trying to protect themselves. Imagine an airline that when they came into Nigeria, they were transacting, and I'm just going to use numbers loosely, and saying that flight from Lagos to London was at the time, say, 700,000 Naira. Now, when they do the exchange rates, it's not favorable for them anymore. So just to maybe cushion the effect of inflation, they would rather earn in dollars. I mean, there are many Nigerians that would rather earn in dollars.
Do you know why? Do you know why? One of the reasons why they say Nigeria is the giant of Africa, because we can say, oh, the economy is not working. And I'm going to do a very little mathematics. Across the world today, we have about 2,000 billionaires. From that number, 700 are from the US in terms of dollars, billionaires in terms of dollar. If you look at the number, I think 400 or 200 is from India. If you look at the number, those billionaires come out of heavily populated countries. And Nigeria is also a populated country. So as it were, we have many of our people traveling. We can use this as conversation. We can use this to form agreement with some of the, they will not come into our country and be determining what will happen to us. And that's why I want to specifically commend the aviation minister. He's been on the right path. And I think if he continues like this, Nigeria again will be respected in terms of the industry.
I don't know if we'll have time. There are two stories I'd have loved for us to take. The Okweolu raising a 14-man panel to investigate Obaseki, and then telcos losing 70 million subscribers.
The saving $20 billion by ending fuel subsidies. That's also an important thing.
I mean, let's quickly take this call as quickly as possible. Samson from Lagos, good morning. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead with your comment and make it brief, please. All right, seems that we've lost that. Okweolu raises 14-man panel to probe Obaseki, restores full statutory rights of Oba of Benin. The drama in Edo State has entered into another gear. What do you see this?
From the very beginning, I knew that there were few recklessness that happened during the last government, and it became very obvious when the governor was was actually fighting with the deputy, and the deputy was available to make some documents also available to people who might want to investigate. And in Nigeria today, it is either you understand politics of power. It is peculiar because politics of power in Nigeria today carries a lot of things in it. The complexity is so wide. Number one, it carries traditionalism in it. It carries ethnicity in it. It carries religion in it. And your ability to be able to swim in this complex water determines at the end of the day whether you will be an acceptable kind of leader. For example, the person of the Oba of Benin, all of us outside of Benin actually revere that office. So it's like somebody coming to the Osun State government now, talking down on the Ife monarch, on of Ife. You know, a lot of people will frown at that. So I think Obaseki did not actually manage that complexity very well, and it's going to backfire. And I knew this will happen. I never knew, I was just praying for him that if his party had lost the election, that was before the election, that this man will be in a very big problem, taking us back to where we're coming from. When I mentioned to you the mindset of Obasanjo said in Africa that opposition is enmity. So he should be ready to face the fire. And of course, if he didn't do anything wrong, he will come out clean at the end of the day.
Wale Adun says Nigerian government saves $20 billion by ending fuel subsidies. Okay,
so subsidy only moved, and I think I made this point, subsidy only moved from government to people. So when government stops paying, people begin to pay. And if you save money at the end of the day, the proceed of the money saved must be to the benefit of the people. So we do not want to hear that, oh, you remember what happened in, is it Anambra, where Peter Obi was? And Peter Obi will come out and say, oh, I saved so billion naira. And we are looking back to see the man that came after him. What did he do with the money? Yeah. The impact is not on the people. So we do not want the federal government to also behave in that certain way of saying, oh, we've saved money because of a subsidy. For instance, if you saved money, there are critical areas, and forget about road. To take the burden off Nigeria today, our refineries have to work in full capacity. So if you save 20 billion, in my head, dollars, I am thinking that by now we should put the refineries to work. There are conversations about petrol that I need to quickly talk about. In 1992, when MK Abiola was campaigning, there was this analogy. He said that the nation had the capacity to actually dispense petrol free of charge. Because in the crude that you see, it is not only petrol. We have about 15 other products that come out of it. Yeah. And when you look at this product, we have petrol, we have diesel, we have jet fuel, we have oil, we have LPG, we have other petrochemicals that you use to produce all of these things. By the time you put the money, you realize on all of these things. MK Abiola had argued that that can actually take care of dispensing petrol free of charge. And there's nobody that has come out to say that MK Abiola was wrong. In fact, in the US, their EIA had come out to say that in every barrel of petrol that crude that you see, that you can actually get between 19 to 20 gallons of petrol. You can get between 10 and 11 gallons of diesel. You can get between 5 and 4 gallons of jet air. You can get 1 gallon of petrol, you can get between 1 and 2. All of these things are there. These are broader conversations that we should have. By the time you total this money together, it is actually possible to have petrol free of charge. So what I'm thinking about is that if we have saved money from subsidy, we should plow the money back to fixing our refinery so that they will actually, you read the Dangote story now, that's trying to bring it back to 977. But I think we do not deserve that price as it were today, because majority of us are still heavily reliant on petrol. So when we have that money, we shouldn't just keep it. We should use it in a way that it will either benefit our foreign exchange or benefits us directly by fixing our refinery.
I mean, as quickly as possible, 1 minute if possible. Telcos rule loss of 70 million subscribers in 9 months. Telcos have been asking the NCC to approve their tariff hike. That hasn't been approved. And their argument would be that the current realities don't support business continuing with telcos. But NCC, on the other hand, is protecting the rights of consumers. Consumers who also are feeling the heat in other areas. So what really is the future for, telcos in Nigeria?
I think they cannot continue like this. And we cannot create a very volatile economy and expect the situation to remain the same. We know from the very beginning that there's one thing that controls everything. In Nigeria today, whatever the direction the dollar is facing is the direction your inflation is facing. Is the direction the prices of product is facing, and the prices of product are facing. When you know this reality, once you allow that to go north, just expect that everything will go that direction. So I pity them, and I also totally pity Nigerians. And I just hope that we will get to a point where all of these things will end and Nigerians will be able to make up. Then that will also set discipline into the way we communicate in Nigeria. It's going to get to a point where I will not have to ask you, hello, how's the family? I just go straight to the point. That's the reality of the of the economy.
All right, Dotun Ojon, thank you very much for your time this morning.